Today's reading is from Ernest Holmes. He says, "In back of me is the potential of the universe. I declare new horizons will open for me, new ideas will flow to me, and a better world of joy and peace will be revealed." And so it is.
So good morning. So glad to have everyone with us this morning in this new way of being in this time. So this time of year is my favorite time of year. It's that transition, that slow transition from winter to spring. Now, if you're in North Carolina, the transition is not always slow, and sometimes it's from winter to summer, but this time of year, it kind of calls in us this kind of like this spiritual, it's just this deeply spiritual time. So the talk title today is Bright Beginnings. And like I said, very appropriate for the season, spring, new growth, birth, transformation, all those things you think about this time of year. We experience longer days, warmer sun, and it kind of seems to call us out of our inward kind of solitude, hibernation of winter, into this awareness, this blossoming awareness of our oneness with Source. And so we begin to focus our shift on this introspection and into this like expression. So in looking at the natural world, this time of year is fraught with a lot of metaphors between growth and planting and spirituality. So I'm going to continue with that. And look at the natural world, flower bulbs are this wonderful metaphor for spiritual growth. Now we see these bulbs and they look like a dull, boring onion. And we think, how in the world could anything wonderful and beautiful come from this little blob of dried something? And yet after this inward time of winter and growth and kind of the under the surface sort of growth, they begin to bloom into this magical and beautiful thing that we see and enjoy. And everything that it needed was in that blob of dried whatever. All the potential, all the color and the vibrancy was housed in this. This perfect blueprint of perfection existed in this form and then expresses in the form that we see. So this awareness is the call and opportunity for spiritual growth and transformation, because within us is the blueprint of perfection. Even if we don't always see it, even if it doesn't always look like it on the outside, within us is this perfect blueprint for perfection. Now, it may require us to re-examine some old beliefs and thought patterns, our ideas about people or situations or the way we even see the world. The freedom to grow in this understanding is modeled to us every year by looking at the natural world. So not only are we in a time of growth and renewal in the natural world, but this week will be the beginning of Passover, which is the major Jewish spring festival which commemorates the liberation of the Israelites from Egypt. So all this kind of coordinates and speaks to this theme of growth, transformation, freedom, emancipation. So in preparation for this talk, 4 insights kind of surface to my awareness. And it's interesting when I have an idea and I kind of sit with it, all these thoughts come and they're exactly what I need to hear. And hopefully it's something that you can take as well. So these insights, when applied to our lives practically, will provide some guidance, some direction, some ways to expand our awareness around this idea of growth, transformation, and our connection to Source. So the first insight to spiritual growth and renewal and transformation and this idea of bright beginnings is that we must be willing to release old ideas and beliefs about who we are. These limiting beliefs that keep us kind of playing small. And we have to trade them in for new ways of being, new ways of thinking, new ways of expressing ourselves. Michael Beckwith says that 100% of spiritual growth is letting go. I will repeat, 100% of spiritual growth is letting go. Now that could be a total bummer for folks where that's a hard thing. But if we just be patient and open our minds, in this spiritual growth and this letting go, we emancipate or free ourselves from these old ideas, these old things, these old beliefs, these old thought patterns that don't serve us anymore. And sometimes those are the thought patterns, those are the ways of being that we hold on so tightly because we think that they are who and what we are. So we don't want to let go of that identity that we've created for ourselves. But letting go, looking at these old ideas and thought patterns, gives us the opportunity to reach back into the past where all those thoughts started and those ways of being started and snatch back some of our energy, because a lot of our energy is back there, to bring that energy into the presence. Because we know that these thought patterns, these ways of thinking, if given enough time to root and grow, these limiting beliefs begin to completely obscure our lens and how we see ourselves, how we see others, how we see the world, how we see our connection to Source, how we see our ability to actually grow and deepen that connection. And so we begin to operate from the space of limit instead of the space of unlimited possibilities. Because that's where we all want to be, right? That's the fun energy, not the stuck energy. So these beliefs and thought patterns can create these energetic blocks, not only in our minds, in our hearts, but in our bodies as well. You can feel it when you've kind of had this ruminating thought or this anxiety or whatever, or this situation. You can feel it in your body. So we know that keeping that, perpetuating that, we feel that, and our bodies and minds respond to it. So in this desired movement toward growth and transformation, because I think we all want to be there, we must be willing to set aside these beliefs and then replace them with beliefs and thoughts that are vibrating at the level that we want to live at. So according to the great Buddhist teacher Thich Nhat Hanh, which I've been reading his book this week, he states that we may need to take a deeper and closer look at a particular idea, a particular thought. Sometimes it can be overwhelming to try to change everything all at once. And then we just get paralyzed and just say, oh well. But if we take just one thought, one thing that we can identify as a limiting belief, and look and discover what is the root of this thought. And you may have to go back longer than last week, because a lot of times these roots have been around for a while. But once we're able to recognize the root, then we can work our way forward. And we can let go and plant the seeds of thoughts that we actually want to see manifested in our lives. So a key step in letting go is quiet in our minds. They're often filled with this endless chatter. And maybe in this time more than anything, as fears and thoughts and things are swirling around. But when we're able to calm our thoughts, return to that place within ourselves, using our breath as a guide, we're able to bring more space and bring more clarity so that we can actually identify those thoughts and beliefs that aren't serving us. Just like when you weed a garden, and I've been doing a whole lot of weeding in the garden. I can go and pull the weeds, and then 2 days later, somehow they have magically appeared again. And why is that? Because we didn't pull them up at the roots. So we can sometimes temporarily replace these ideas and beliefs But then they start coming back again. It's because we haven't dealt at the root. In order to do that, we just have to go within, get very quiet, and remove those things from the roots and replace them with the things that we want. So by weeding the gardens of our minds, which is it's an interesting visualization, isn't it? Weeding those things, clearing our minds. I've been doing a meditation that talks about this, and it actually talks about thinking about your mind as a door, and then like opening a side door and letting the wind kind of blow all those things out. However you want to visualize it. We have to get to the root cause of those ideas and those beliefs that limit us and keep us stuck, so that we can kind of create space for the intentional seeds of thought. So just like in a garden, you got to remove all the things you don't want so that you have room for the seeds to grow. Same sort of thing. Isn't it interesting that the blueprint for spirituality is in everything we see? So the second insight along the spiritual path and what I was thinking was that this journey of life is hard enough. We need to pack very light. So kind of building on this idea of letting go of limiting beliefs and things that don't serve us, I begin to think of this baggage more in the emotional sense. That baggage of like anger, resentment, unforgiveness, fear, all those things that kind of weigh us down. Those things that we wake up in the morning and sometimes are unable to move because the weight of those emotions, that energy just kind of keeps us stuck. So we go through life feeling heavy and burdened, and we can feel this in all aspects of our being, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, physically. So it's those times, just like with these limiting thoughts and beliefs, that we have to really look at these things that are keeping us stuck, these things that are impacting our ability to live our true selves and true expressions of who and what we are. So if you've ever tried swimming fully clothed, and I'm sure there's a lot of you who have tried the opposite, but if you've ever tried swimming fully clothed, whether intentionally or unintentionally, then you know the tremendous weight that is felt, making it almost impossible to like move or tread water or do anything like that. So I have an example of this, of course. This is an unintentional example. I've had both intentional and unintentional, but this is an unintentional example. I went fishing not too long ago, and it was quite chilly because it was in the morning, because you have to get up at the crack of dawn. So I was layered up because I do not like to be cold. There's not enough meat on these bones to insulate me. And so I was layered up, like 15 layers it felt like. I couldn't even put my arms down. I was layered so much. And so the last part of the layer was a super warm kind of wool-like vest. And I was all zipped up, and I was good to go. So, of course, as it would happen, I made a misstep. You know, the water's flowing. There's slippery rocks everywhere. I lost my footing, and down I went. I mean, like that. In like 3 seconds, every piece of clothing that I wore, like up to my neck, was completely soaked with water. And you would think, just stand up. Oh no. I could not move. And I'm standing at that point laying in about 3 feet of water. So it's not over my head, but I could not move. The sheer weight of the water that had just engulfed this, the wool vest had sucked like every droplet of water from this river, and it had all like saturated to my body. So there was a few seconds where, one, I wondered if I was going to drown, and two, I wondered if all the crazy folk that were around me were actually going to come and help me. I eventually was able, with great effort, to bring myself to the surface and out of the water. It took me like 14 hours to dry out. But this is like the way it is when we move through our lives with all this stuff that's stuck to us, and these weights of past unforgiveness and anger and resentment and fear, and those things, I know it's easier said than done. Those things are hard to let go of. But we have to be willing, and sometimes willing to be willing to look at those things and let go of those things. releasing doubts, fears about situations, relationships, outcomes, all those things that get us all stirred up. And releasing those things that really disrupt our capacity for joy, because it's exactly what it does. These things, as heavy as they are, it's hard to experience joy under the weight of these things. But letting go is a choice. Just like a lot of things in our lives, it's a choice. Sometimes it's a hard choice, and sometimes it's a choice that you have to make minute by minute. But it's a choice to no longer ruminate on those things, no longer those things of the past or things of the future or even worries in the present. Because a lot of times these are out of our control. But instead, focus on our present moment thinking. I know we talk a lot about living in the present moment, but focusing on the present moment with intention and focusing on the things in this present moment in our sphere of influence that we can control. Letting go creates space for new beginnings. Removing the baggage of yesterday enables us to breathe and step freely into something new, a new way of being, new way of experiencing, new way of living. Just like clearing out a house to make room for new furniture. You're not going to buy new furniture and pile it on the old furniture. Some of you may, but for this example, it's the idea of clearing those things that maybe once had value and now stepping into something new. Oh, and this next insight's a hard one. This one was a hard one for me. I almost left it out because this one's a hard one for me to live. But it kept on knocking me in the head every day this week. So another key piece in our journey, in this idea of spiritual transformation, spiritual growth, evolution, however you want to see it, is the ability to be okay with uncertainty and to embrace acceptance, because they go hand in hand. Like I said, for me, this is the most difficult. I want to know exactly what's going to happen, when it's going to happen, and if it doesn't happen, I want to know the backup plan. And I don't think I'm the only one who lives life this way in some form or fashion. But there are going to be times on our journey, especially times of challenge, especially times that we see now that we're currently experiencing, that we're not going to be able to see the path before us. And so this reminds me of a Joseph Campbell quote, which I think I've quoted this to many folks. And he says, if you can see the path laid out in front of you step by step, it's not your path. Your own path you make with every step you take. That's why it's your path. And so sometimes that's hard, that our path and whatever we do in life is that step by step. And we build it step by step. So this brings the absolute into our awareness, the absolute imperative nature of this present moment living. Because this is how we build our path, living in the present. It's only in this present space that anxiety and fear and everything that we feel kind of fades away. And that acceptance begins to take root. It's in this space of being okay with uncertainty and accepting what is before us that we can experience this expanded awareness and being. And then we can stand on the threshold of limited possibilities. Or limitless, I should say. Limitless possibilities. So the last insight I want to speak about only comes when you've done all the other three. So when we've released old ideas and beliefs, we've let go of those emotions and things that no longer serve us, anger and resentment, unforgiveness, fear. Those are the heavy hitters, I think. And become comfortable with uncertainty and practicing this idea of acceptance and being okay that we don't have to see the end, be okay that we don't have to attach to a specific outcome that has to look a certain way, because that's limiting too. So when we've done all that, when we've worked and got our toe in the water of all those things, The fourth insight in this journey of growth and transformation is the absolute undeniable fact that once we become aware, once we have created a path, once we have expanded our consciousness, there is no way of going back to the old way of life. The way it was before. Now, we may fall into old thought patterns and habits, but we are forever changed. Our minds, our hearts, our souls, they have tasted the sweet nectar of living in this space, this sacred space. They've experienced that blessed feeling of being home. We've participated in this freedom. And the more we practice, the more we readily can shift our awareness. When we begin to feel those old thoughts, those old patterns, those beliefs, or we're hanging on to things that we should be letting go of, we can feel it in our bodies. Once we've tasted how it feels to be free, once we've tasted, even in a small area of our life, what it means to let go of some things that don't serve us and really feel that expanded awareness, we're going to be able to see it in all aspects. I need to let go of that. I don't need to hold on to that. I need to grab that. We're going to be able to feel it, to experience it. You know, just like when people see something that they really didn't want to see and they say, I can't unsee that. There's a lot of things that I've seen lately that I can't unsee. But it's the same sort of idea, that once we get a taste of that, a taste of what it means to be truly connected with love and peace and joy and all those things that are who and what we are, we want more of that and less of the stuff that we've been hanging on to. And so when we begin to do that, and seeing these limiting thoughts, limiting beliefs, these limiting emotions, these things that we really don't want to see manifest in our lives, when we pulled them up by the roots and we have stopped fertilizing them with our attention, they kind of drift away in the background. And that's not to say that things don't come up and we're not human, we are. But you'll find yourself more and more as you practice that you come back quicker and quicker. But, in spiritual practice and sometimes in spiritual thought, we can kind of get a little bit down on ourselves of like, why am I still holding on to these things? That person over there, they're able to let go, and look what they're experiencing. Why do I always hang on to this? And sometimes we can become a little self-critical in this path of spiritual growth because we want so bad to not be what we're being. But the invitation, and I think this is the most important part, honestly, of this idea of spiritual growth and spiritual transformation, not to argue with Michael Beckwith about 100% being letting go, but I think this is a real high percentage, is to be gentle with those places in us. To turn our gaze to those areas of our minds and awareness where the weeds and thoughts and burdensome baggage are. Not to look at them with condemnation or judgment, but with love and tenderness. Much like you would tend a garden. I'm not going to go out in my garden and see that my cucumbers are not growing and say, why are you not growing? I have put you in the ground. Why are you not doing what you're supposed to do? No. We're going to take a step back. We're going to look and say, okay, have I watered it enough? Have I given it the food that it needs? Have I taken care of this outer landscape to give it the best possible chance for growth and vitality? And if I haven't, then I just gently make those changes. It's the same thing. So this is not a call to judgment and call to anything like that. This is a call to love those places and to understand those tender places. So that not only can we, in the natural world, see this visual landscape, but the call is to look into our inner landscape and look at those things that are impeding our own growth. And with love, begin to shift them. And develop this environment within ourselves where love, joy, peace, and all those things that we want can nourish and grow. And it's at that point that we can take these words of Ernest Holmes that we heard at the beginning and begin to truly believe them and truly embody them. And so I'm going to personalize them for us all. And thank you, Jim, for reading them. But I'm going to personalize us so that we can kind of feel the collective energy of the words. So he says, "In back of us is the potential of the universe. We declared new horizons will open for us. New ideas will flow to us, and a better world of joy and peace will be revealed." And so it is.
So it is.
So I got real excited there. I forgot I'm supposed to pray. What I know. And there's sometimes so very few things that we think that we know. But what I know in this moment, it is there is one power, one creative energy that is back of all things. Not some things, but all things. That the blueprint, the formula, the master plan is woven in every aspect of our life. Those things that we can see easily, those things that live beneath the surface, and those things that are out of our visual plane. We know that this power and presence is a guiding force. And so what I know is that we are connected to it, that we participate in it, that we are the vehicles for this divine power and presence to discover itself through us. So taking all that energy of connection, I speak a word for us in this moment. Knowing that there is within all of us that place where this perfection abounds. And knowing sometimes that it gets layered a little bit with the stuff of life, but knowing that we have the choice to take a closer look at those things that we may have been carrying around in our back pocket that we really don't need anymore. So the invitation is to take a gentle look within, let go of the things that we don't need anymore, and focus on those things that bring us joy. Focus on those things that allow us to step into this idea of freedom and experience a bright beginning. And each day we have the opportunity to do this, and we are grateful. So I release these words into the law that only ever says yes. This creative medium that brings forth with expectancy and with power those thoughts and beliefs that I choose. And so it is.
So it is.